Hey everybody, I'm Steve Moore.
And I'm Mark Castleman.
We know the pain and heartbreak of porn and sex addiction.
And we know the triumph of breaking completely free.
Every day, we help our clients find hope and healing.
Join us in the fight to take back your life, your marriage, and be stronger than ever.
This is the PBSC Squared podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 307 in the PBSC podcast. How do I know if my partner is, quote, genuine during sexual intimacy and not just reflecting his 20 plus years of porn use?
Well, that's not a charged
not
topic at all.
Not heavy at all. Not heavy at all.
Very light.
Oh my gosh.
Today is just kind of a fluffy podcast. We're being sarcastic, of course.
Yeah,
There's a lot to this.
Really very heartfelt, very articulate. We were just deeply impressed with this partner's submission.
Yeah.
It was just so well expressed, so well. You can tell she's done a ton of work.
Well, it sounds like this coupleship, to be honest. I mean, we're going to talk about it, but it sounds like this coupleship as a whole.
Yeah, they both have. The addict in recovery is put in a ton of work. They've got therapists and programs and groups, and they just have done so much really good work. He has brought himself into a long-term, sober, really increasingly balanced place. Just so much good stuff that they've done. And with all of that happening, she says our relationship has improved in ways I never thought possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she says, well, I wish every day that all of this hadn't happened, right? All the betrayal and all the discovery and all the just terrible stuff they've been through. I can say that it opened doors for a new marriage where we feel more connected and engaged than we ever have before. Mm-hmm. That is so awesome when you hear that. Doesn't mean it wasn't crazy hard. Absolutely the worst possible thing imaginable that they both wish they hadn't been through. But then to hear her say, you know what? It is what it is. We've come through it, and we are closer than ever. And yeah. I feel that way about my marriage, and I know you do about yours too, Steve. I often say you could drop an atomic bomb on us, and we're so welded at this point. You're not breaking us apart. Now we've been through hell to get there. as I have too. But with all that said, here's now where this really heartfelt question that really we know is coming from both of them. She says, as we have healed and things have improved, there's one area where we're still struggling though. I now question certain aspects of our sex life. How do I reconcile that my husband's history before meeting me and during the first almost couple of decades of our marriage was shaped by the things he saw and liked while watching pornography? So he has a history of decades of pornography use, which goes back to his childhood, and he brought that into the marriage. This fact has me questioning everything, the betrayed partner. Right? The way he looks at my body parts, the things he likes, even things we've done in the bedroom for 20 years. While my desire and preferences were shaped by personal experiences during my formative years and our time together, his were seemingly shaped by pornographic fantasy from his teenage years onward. As he works to reconcile his sexual education via pornography, reconcile all that with our sex life, he has confessed that he struggles to articulate what he likes and why he likes it. I often feel an unspoken shame and apprehension from him during or following sexual intimacy. It's as if he's questioning if what he did was normal or driven by some previous fantasy. He questions whether he is normal or a sexual deviant. He lived two separate compartmental sex lives, one with porn and one with me. While I think we are connecting in ways we never have before, I still feel like there are things left unresolved about our sexual intimacy. How do we find our new normal together when our experience and reality is just so different.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot involved in this, and we can appreciate the difficulty, but also the commonality of this
Mhm.
issue. So I think so often when we're going through recovery, especially in the early stages, we're focusing on so many other things, establishing baseline levels of trust, um, trying to develop and build out honesty, gaining sobriety, navigating through the first couple of steps of figuring out, what is addiction, what is betrayal trauma, what are all these elements that, and we focus so much on that. This is one of those topics that's great to talk about on the podcast because it's one of those later stage, more advanced kind of recovery concepts, but it's one that every coupleship at some point in this process, usually multiple times, has to go through, and has to figure this out, right? Because tragically, we have this element in our intimacy, one form of among eight that Mark and I talk about in Dare to Connect, our program for addict spouses and couples called sex or sexuality, which is very closely tied to a second one, which is physical intimacy or non-sexual physical intimacy. One can lead to the other, although not necessarily. And unfortunately, those two elements that are designed and in an optimal condition are huge, really integral parts of a healthy relationship because of the nature of this addiction have just become, I'm going to use the term corrupted in
Yeah.
in a lot of ways,
Corrupted,
for the
tainted.
addict and for the partner.
Yeah. And Steve, as you and I were preparing to do this episode, we both kind of looked at each other. This whole situation, to put it mildly, stinks. It
Oh yeah, for
stinks.
sure.
Wouldn't it have been awesome if we had been raised in an environment that didn't have pornography and a sexualized culture and all this stuff bombarding us endlessly? And we've been raised by, older adults that could have talked to us about all the healthy aspects and the beautiful nature and the awesomeness of this whole thing. But we weren't.
Yeah.
And you and I were talking, we couldn't think of a single person we've worked with or known who could say that they were.
I mean, as we talk about on this podcast all the time, that probably isn't shocking to most of you. I mean, our culture, I mean, I can't speak to other areas of history, so I don't know that I could compare, but I mean, generally speaking, our culture is just very poor at addressing the concept of sexuality, what's healthy, what's not, why it's healthy, why it's not. And, the age that we live in has only kind of enhanced that, I think, in recent years. And so, you take that just as a general concept, then you think about what we're exposed to at school or on the internet or, at church or work or with friend groups. It's amazing any of us get out of those
Or
experiences with any sense of
it's a little kid and
sexuality.
little kid in the shopping cart with his mom or dad and being wheeled to the checkout counter and looking at eye level at the latest salacious cover of a magazine.
Yeah.
The little kid's, 2 or 3 years old and it's already started. The thing I hope, and I see this more, but not enough. I was raised with the old attitude towards pornography, especially primarily towards men and then women who had sort of been coerced or browbeat into this attitude. Oh yeah, that's just guys will be guys. It's a harmless pastime. He can look as long as he doesn't touch. All the crazy attitudes I was raised with regard to pornography and the normalization of it. I hope we now know after everything we've been through as cultures across the world that none of those things are true.
Yeah.
Right? Pornography has a deep impact on the human brain. You and I, Steve, had colleagues years ago who did, for example, fMRI studies of the brain consuming porn, and the parts of the brain lighting up looked just like a brain under the influence of heroin or cocaine. Right? It has a massive rewiring impact. We call it super learning because of all of the powerful brain chemicals like dopamine and norepinephrine and oxytocin and adrenaline that are all present with the images. it literally opens up the brain's memory systems to just absorb it all. And it
Mm.
is etched. And the problem with that is it affects our arousal templates, right? What turns us on and what doesn't. And we bring all of that into the bedroom of our committed long-term, precious relationships. We bring it in. I
Yeah.
did. I brought it all with me. And the challenge is it's there. I wish I could have just wiped my memory clean and started from scratch or from fresh, but we can't. And so now the question is, how do we move forward in healthy ways with these toxic elements of our past being present?
Mm. Yeah.
I remember my original mentor had a powerful statement, powerful principle that he introduced me to. He said, Mark, a lot of people will say, well, past is past, just is what it is. You can't change it. And he said, the past means what it means until it means something different. And I spent years studying with him about what that even means. But it's such a place of empowerment. Yes, this is all in my head. This part of the road into, yes, her husband has all of these images and things in his head. And yet he still has the ability to shift, to move that, to create new meaning, to create new approaches. He still has a lot to say about this, as does she.
Well, and that's a good segue into this concept because I think this is kind of what sits at the crux of this. Can something that was once toxic and corrupted ever be healthy and wholesome again?
Mm,
Right, a long time ago, through actions and inactions on us addicts' parts, and in some cases, partners were unwilling participants in it. I mean, I know my story with my wife and I. We Neither one of us, being honest with you. I mean, I was very forthright with my wife before we got married about the issues that I was having, but I didn't call it an addiction. I didn't think that it was. I didn't I don't think we even used the term sex or porn addiction back then. That wasn't even really a cultural concept or a construct that anyone was familiar with, and the research was fairly new. Resources and support were limited, and my wife and I were just very naive. What we thought was a quote unquote little porn problem was something much worse. And the attitudes and perceptions that around sexuality that are impacted for the addict, obviously, as they are engaging with pornography, sexually inaccurate or inauthentic material in a variety of forms, as well as a lot of perceptions and mindsets accompanying that, pornography specifically, but also for the partner, right? The perspectives of these become so warped and twisted for too many men. Sex becomes a very dominating practice where pleasure is the sole goal, and specifically the pleasure of the man is the sole goal. For many partners, it becomes something that is very scary, something almost subservient, tragically. And this is just an example, right, of the many attitudes that can be outgrowths depending on what your experience around this has been. And now we find ourselves in a relationship where it's kind of like it's like my wife and I, if I was to think about it in an analogy, it's like we're both looking at this amazing china pot that I dropped on the ground and it shattered into a million pieces. And we're like looking at this and we're like, how do we how do we put this back together?
mm,
How do we reframe this? And there is a way. We're going to talk about it today, but it is a journey. It's a process, and there's a lot tied to it. But we do want you to know you're definitely not alone in this. Every couple that goes through the journey of recovery on at some point crosses this bridge. They
yeah.
have to,
Yeah.
because it's the only way to move forward eventually, right? Because even though sex and intimacy and physicality are a small portion of intimacy and compared to the greater whole, they're still a significant and essential one.
Yeah.
And at some point we have to go here. And
Well,
so
and I really appreciated, they've obviously talked about this in some depth as a couple.
yeah,
She says he's confessed that he struggles to articulate what he likes and why he likes it. He's
yeah,
not even sure anymore. Uh, all right, I often feel an unspoken shame and apprehension from him during or following sex, as if he's questioning if what we just did was normal or was it driven by some previous fantasy. He questions whether he's normal or a sexual deviant.
Mm.
You can hear the confusion and the yearning to like, what is healthy after all this? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's will and again we can honor that because I think that's a healthy place to be operating from. Not that you need to go there, but the fact that he is so mindful and there is some of that healthy hesitation because he's trying to figure it out. I remember feeling a lot of those same things. And even though that was scary and it wasn't where we landed, it was a good place to be starting from. So a couple like this, I think, is well primed, to move into this discussion. Again, the separating the toxic from the healthy, it is a constant journey. And there are lots of components to that. I'll just list off some of them that may resonate with you. Authentic versus inauthentic. Right now in the Dare to Connect program, we are placing an emphasis over the next couple of months on boundaries, and it's forerunner because boundaries are formulated from what we call the authentic self. And so right now in real time, we're working on that, and something that we're exploring. We'd love to have you come join us. You can grab a 2-week free trial of that at daretoconnectnow.com. We'd love to have you come join us as we enter into the holiday season for some extra support in your recovery journey. But there's not just the authentic versus inauthentic. We have response versus reaction, something we've been talking a lot about in Dare to Connect. Connecting
Well,
versus distancing.
and I
Go ahead,
like
Mark. Go
that
ahead.
that authentic versus inauthentic, Steve. Being authentic, authenticity is thrown around in our culture a lot. But what is it for each individual? For example, this the partner who wrote in for her husband. What does he consider to be his higher self, his true self, his better self? What is the person that? What is his sense of core values? What makes him him at his center?
Mm, yeah.
And is he engaging in sexual intimacy from that place or from some other inauthentic place?
Mm,
Right? And it feeds into what you just said. The authentic place is typically very responsive, intentional. It isn't just all about me. It's about us. Versus the other approach is very reactive, right? Very just yeah. It reacts to old brain wiring and old stuff. And one's connecting and one's distancing. The other bullet, one's present and one's absent. There were many times in my deep addiction that my wife and I were sexually intimate, and I was not present. I
Yeah.
was someplace else. My body was there, but my emotions, my mind, my attention, my whatever, they were somewhere else.
Well, and building versus destroying, and then transparency versus deception are the others we have on the list. I mean, building versus destroying is one that resonates for me quite a bit. We say often on this podcast, D2C is a frequent focus of this as well. I mean, you can build or ruin a relationship in the bedroom and in the related topics relating to it quicker than you can in almost any other forum in intimacy.
True.
What
Yeah.
is it is the most sacred and vulnerable space for most people, and that I don't use the term sacred in terms of a religiosity. I use that in terms of just how close it is to a person. It's one of the most integral expressions of self and one of the most vulnerable ways we can express ourselves. And we can develop tremendous connection there, or we can absolutely destroy things. And so the hesitancy with a couple like this is again, we don't want a couple to stay there, but frankly, the caution around it is warranted because you can really do some amazing things or some really destructive things here. And so treading carefully is most definitely recommended. Um, as we're kind of moving through this, there are a couple more segments to this pod. There's a lot to say on this subject, so we're trying to just kind of give you a starting point. But there are four main concepts that we want you to keep in mind as we continue this discussion, because the key areas when it comes to, well, how do we do this, right? How do we do this, Mark and Steve? How do we separate this? How do we draw this out? What we've got down here for each of you to examine are these four main areas: intention, headspace, trust, and transparency.
Mm.
Okay, and we're going to go through and we're going to talk about each one of those. Mark,
Yeah.
you want to kick us off
Yeah.
with
I love the
intention?
fact that intention is first on this list. It has to be. Right. I can put all sorts of a facade on and project something that I want you to think that I'm feeling or where my motivation is coming from. And especially sexually, we like to say, you better check your intention at the bedroom door. before you go into that space. What are you intending at your true core center? Because no matter what you say or whatever, however you try to fake it, you bring that intention with you. And what you are intending is everything, right? I want to be sexual or in other ways affectionate. Why? Why? I want to be sexual or affectionate in this way, fill in the blank. Why? What's my intention? What's my motivation? Where's that coming from? That's a super important thing that has to be asked, especially by us addicts in recovery, before we enter into the actual sexual intimacy itself. What is my intention?
Yeah.
And you've often said, Steve, and I have adopted the same approach. If my intention is wrong, I am going to disengage. I'm going to be transparent about that. I'm going to communicate it clearly so that my partner doesn't feel abandoned or rejected. But I'm going to say, hey, I don't feel like I'm in a very good headspace right now. And I want to make sure that I come to this interaction with us in a really good, healthy place. I need to go work on some stuff. And we can talk about coming back together. Would that be all right?
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. PBSE podcast hosts Mark and Steve here with a special message about our revolutionary online recovery program for addict spouses and couples called Dare to Connect. Multiple times every week, we get messages from subscribers in the program. They're people just like you. They're trying to heal from the devastation of sex and porn addiction and betrayal trauma. And here's a few of our most recent submissions. Here's one from an addict in recovery. It says, D2C has principles that everyone should utilize regardless of their circumstances. It doesn't matter your coping mechanisms. It matters that you want to work towards genuine connection with your partner.
That's awesome. Another testimony from an addict continues on. My wife is just starting out in training as a licensed therapist. Dare to Connect has been far more useful to her than her degree.
Wow.
The way Mark and Steve apply what they've learned is always so redemptive. D2C has opened doors for my relationship that I thought would be shut forever. Mark and Steve are an incredible resource of information on the subject of sex addiction and betrayal trauma. We could not do this journey without their help.
Here's one from a partner who's been with us for nearly a year. I want you both to know that it is because of you guys and D2C that I'm able to be in the place that I am today. I will always be grateful to you both for your feedback and prompt replies to my questions. I can't even come close to putting it into words how valuable my time spent with y'all this past year has been to my life. Thank you for everything you taught me about betrayal trauma and boundaries and thinking errors and loving myself and making myself a priority and standing up for myself.
Love that submission. And then as we close out here today, guys, one more account from another addict in recovery. I wish I had a platform like this 14 years ago where I could have learned and done the hard work of recovery before I had done all this damage to myself and to my spouse. And to be candid with all of you, that's exactly why we created Dare to Connect. Mark and I found ourselves in that place. Messages like these and the others like them, they're what Dare to Connect really is all about, guys, and why Mark and I do what we do. Whether you're an addict or a partner of an addict, and no matter where you find yourself in the recovery process, Dare to Connect can take you to the next level. Don't wait another day to catapult your recovery forward. Today is your day for change. Visit us at daretoconnectnow.com to pick up your free 2-week trial of Dare to Connect today. I mean, for a guy that is feeling this sort of hesitancy, and again, I resonate with it. I used to feel the same thing. The way I've usually phrased it for myself, it's because it's kind of a normalizing exercise, but an inquisitive exercise. Okay, so I want to be sexual or otherwise affectionate in X, Y, or Z ways. Great. I'm moving away from that place of shaming, right? I'm a sexual being among whatever else I am. The key is why? Why do I want to do that? What does X sexual act, for example, or X expression of affection, what does it mean for me? What does it convey? What am I trying to convey? Right? Because so much of and this is what makes this discussion hard, and we hope we drive this point home. These elements behind these actions is everything, right? There are so many, when you look at the pornography world, right? It's this distorted on so many levels, performative and otherwise, distorted version of sexual behaviors and practices, right? And what makes the line between what makes something very healthy and very not is really best understood and safeguarded by these things, intention being the first,
Yeah.
right? What is the objective here? Am I trying to legitimately, for example, connect versus not? Of course, is what I'm wanting to engage in going to feel good? Yeah, probably. That's how sex usually feels. But again, am I being led by that? Or what's leading the cart in this journey, right? With
Yeah, I
this
mean, if I
encounter.
to be transparent, if I look back at my heavy addiction years after, decades of being quote educated by pornography, my intention was in a really self-centered place. I mean, I had a great sense of sexual entitlement that was taught to me by the porn world. It was all about me. My wife she was just a means to an end, right? She was just kind of an object that I was going to use to get to my pleasure ends. And I would often come from that entitled, pleasure centered, okay, you get to service me and get me to that place. That was too often the
Mm,
mindset. And again, the culture, the pornography, the locker room, peers, that was pounded into me for many, many years. And I unfortunately brought it with me into the relationship. So that intention has got to be checked and be very honest and mindful about where you're at with it, right? Because it's the headspace. How am I viewing my partner as a participant in this activity coming together? How am I viewing myself and why?
yeah.
Where are you coming from?
Well, and I mean, in addition to that, right, and this headspace and this intention piece, let's talk about the trust one, number three on our list, right?
Yeah.
Because the base for trust is critical for any act. A base of trust is critical for any action of intimacy development in a relationship. There are, like a cake, there are different ingredients that you can put into the intimacy equation and come up with different results. One non-negotiable element is trust.
Yeah.
You cannot pull trust out of an intimate objective-oriented relationship and expect intimacy.
Well, you
Um,
mentioned as we started, Steve, that this space can do great, can bring us together in wonderful ways, or create massive destruction. There were times when I pressed my wife to be sexual when the trust was not there, and in her wanting to hold together our relationship and go along to get along, which fortunately she stopped doing as she learned to set boundaries. But because I pushed when the trust wasn't there, I did some great damage.
yeah. Well, and that kind of comes back, and that actually lines up really well with the transparency piece. But this trust piece, we will just say, is a two-way street, right? Because it may not just be, for example, the partner that struggles with trust. The addict may struggle with trust. This example that was sent to us that's causing, that's the source of this episode
Mm.
is an example. He's having a hard time trusting himself.
Yeah.
And so taking a close eye to those, examining those and talking through them, and making sure that whatever we're doing sexually or physically is based on a foundation that can bear the weight of whatever that is important, right? Sex and physicality happen on a spectrum. It isn't either no contact or, full on sexual intimacy. And trust works the same way. So we need to make sure that where we're heading and why is lining up, but also this element. I mean, are we both safe? Is really what this is coming down to. Are we both safe to take X action, right? And then we have this transparency piece, right? How much about all of the above? This is kind of your ultimate, what do we say, kind of checker on the other three: intention, headspace, and trust. How much am I sharing about all the above with my partner? How much are they sharing with me? Kind of going back to what Mark said. If I'm talking a lot to my partner about my motives and intentions, and I'm seeing tension on my partner's face, or I'm getting one word answers back, or
Mm.
they're not really responding right in depth, these are all warning signs that this might be problematic,
Yeah.
right? Why are we having a hard time talking about this? What's getting in the way? How capable am I actually being? Am I able to be honest with myself? And again, that's not just a question for addicts, it's a question with partners. Like Mark said, some partners have become so geared, not just because of the trauma they've endured around sex, but also the cultural norms that we've talked about. Many, for example, have grown up in a sexual culture where, I mean, I've heard this from more than one client, and from that come from extremely, certain religious sects and things. Saying no to sex is not an option in a marriage. It's not
Mm,
something you do.
yeah.
It isn't. If it's requested, it's given, and that's just how it is,
Yeah. What a
right?
crock.
That can really get in the way, right? So, what other obstacles might be getting in the way of this? It could be old habits, right? It could be fear. It could be people pleasing, fawning or placating, right? Or I've worked with too many partners who have said, "I just wanted to avoid a confrontation. I wasn't even scared. I just didn't want to fight him."
Yeah, our partner said, I just wanted to give him what he wanted and get it over with, so we could get back to life. Because if
Yeah,
I didn't, it wasn't going to go well.
yeah, he's just
He
going to
was,
keep asking. He's going to
he's
keep
going,
pestering. I have a
he's
hard
going
time
to,
saying no.
yeah, he's going to mope. He's going to go moody. He's going to go stoic like I used to. And another thing, just being honest with ourselves, I I didn't know what mindfulness was.
No.
I didn't know how to pause and stop and check my motives and my intentions before I became sexual. My addiction told me when the urge comes, you act on it right now.
Yeah.
Right?
It's one of the reasons why, I mean, this isn't a hard and fast rule, but generally speaking, I know Mark and I in our clinics, when we're working with individuals and in our Dare to Connect program, we talk about this idea that it's generally a safer practice to more exercise a limiting factor on the sexual piece early in recovery versus later. And again, that's not a hard and fast rule, and it's different for every coupleship. But again, there's an increased risk of damage at the beginning. Why exactly? Exactly because of why Mark's talking about. I've
Yeah.
worked with many couples or addicts or partners individually over the years who swear up and down they're ready for this, and then they find out they're not. Right? They don't fully understand what's going on behind the scenes, and it's not because they're stupid. It's because they're just at the beginning of this, and it's a journey.
Well, and
When
as I
you are
left
when
you,
you are dealing with
yeah,
the basic survival elements of recovery, trying to examine this kind of stuff is almost impossible.
right. You're so right. Yeah.
You're just trying to survive, trying to get sober, trying to do whatever. That trying to examine the finer points of how authentic is sex to me right now is very difficult to answer.
Well, and you bring up a great point, because what do you and I often see? It's kind of the same mindset that says, okay, what's going to fix this whole thing that was now been discovered is just let's go to couples counseling, like right out of the gate. Let's fix this coupleship. You cannot do that, right? There's immense work that has to happen for the addict and for the healing partner. But this coupleship may want to slow things down, may want to take some steps back. So this guy has the chance to do his personal work to figure some of these things out with his support system, his therapist, talking with her about it. So in some cases, couples actually, quote, go back to scratch.
Yeah.
Let's date again. Let's hold hands for a while and see how that goes with the intention. Let's engage in, right? Let's back up and take these steps over again, and let's do it in a healthy way. I don't know if that's the case for this couple, but it's certainly something that should be considered. A
For sure.
slowing down, a backing up. Let's simplify this. Let's really look at where we're at, right?
Yeah. Well, guys, as we wrap up, we've got one more section to get through, but we will say this. If you're liking what you're hearing so far about this subject, uh, admission into the D2C program, or when you subscribe to Dare to Connect, doesn't just give you access to all the benefits we talk about every week. Specifically, it gives you access to our advanced D2C Academy courses based on a seniority. And as of the date of this recording, Mark, what step do they gain access to healthy sexuality?
Actually, once they've been here for 6 months.
6 months,
It's
correct?
our
Yeah.
most advanced course. It's literally 27 modules that are almost an hour each on the subject of healthy sexuality in a coupleship.
It's the only course like it of its kind that we know of.
Yeah.
We've never seen one, which is why we created it. So if you like the drive about this overview, you will love that course as well as all the others on there. And daretoconnect.com. We'd love to have you come join us. But we're going to wrap up here with some rules. Okay. We've got a list of, I think, seven here, 7 or 8 rules that we're going to give you just to kind of ponder on and think about. Because again, this is a great podcast because it's universally applicable wherever you're at in this process. Okay. So we're going to walk through these fairly quick, and then we'll let you all go. But these are rules we call it for navigating the evolution that occurs in a sexual relationship. Okay. Obviously, these are specific to an addiction betrayal trauma dynamic, but they're equally applicable to just a healthy relationship in
Yeah.
general. Okay.
Anybody.
So first and foremost, be able to talk about it before trying it. That's a
Yeah.
rule that I have learned through trial and error. If I can't talk about what I want to do, I probably have some shame or insecurity or other issues at play that I need to look at.
Yeah.
It is amazing to me and never ceases to amaze how many clients Mark and I work with who clearly are adept at being sexual. They have like 7 children, but can't talk about it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
being able to talk about it before trying it is a great first kind of checkpoint. Okay.
It's huge. It's huge. Setting boundaries and expectations in advance, right? In advance. How many times did I engage in sexual intimacy with my partner and just quote sprung stuff on her in the moment, right? My addict brain knowing that she probably wasn't going to resist very much because she was trying to hold us together, right? But talking about these things up front in non-sexual settings, by the way.
Yes.
You don't wait till you're all turned on and sexual. We need to talk about our boundaries and our expectations. No, it doesn't work that way. You need to do it when you're in your couples check-in or your weekly partnership meeting. When you're not being sexual, you talk about these things up front.
Next rule, whatever space you're going to be physical in, it needs to be a safe setting for both people.
Or
And
both.
and that can mean a lot of things, guys. We have had couples, for example, who, because of the trauma involved in their relationship, for whatever reason, they've needed to get a new bedroom set, you know,
Mhm.
as a part of the recovery process. That's a little more on the extreme side, but it does happen. And those conversations need to happen to make sure that, we're setting a stage for it. We need to be taking a close examination to what needs to change individually and possibly externally to help to kind of reset this process and enhance it when it's been damaged. Okay.
Yeah.
So creating a safe setting for both people is really important.
And being supportive and open and collaborative in whatever that means.
Yeah.
Because I know that I felt them, and some guys get into a real place of resentment when their partner starts to state what they need to be safe.
Yeah.
But after all the abuse and the gaslighting and the betrayal, you need to err on the side of doing whatever it takes to create safety. Right? I love this next bullet. An absence of objection isn't consent. Oh my gosh, that is so true. Well, she didn't say anything.
Yeah.
So I just plowed forward.
Yep. That's not how real intimacy happens,
No.
right? That isn't just advice you would get on any college campus, in terms of, how to navigate the sexual relationships in that stage of life. That is very correct for intimacy, although on a deeper level. It's
Absolutely.
absolute. In absence of something is not enough. Again, we need to be talking. We need to be sharing. What does this mean? Sex means something different to everybody. It means a lot of things different to everybody. And it
Yeah.
isn't so much about whether those differences are good or bad. It's much more to do with, are they understood? What does this signify to me?
Yeah.
Right? What does this signify to you?
Is there truly informed consent, discussed consent, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and this one's really important. It kind of goes along with the last one, but I like it because a lot of couples need to hear this. It sounds obvious, but it's not based on what we've seen with the couples we work with. Attempting something once isn't licensed for forever.
Oh my God.
Okay. Part of this journey of this sexual element, when you after you've done all of the things we're talking about today, there is an element to this that is frankly trial and error. We're only gonna, we at some point we have to take what we're learning and talking about into practice, right? And so once we've checked all the boxes, we've lined up everything we can, then there is an element of experimentation to this. But we have worked with too many couples where it's almost like some sort of cultural unspoken rule that once we brought X onto the table, now it's there forever. No, it's
Mhm.
not. It's not,
No.
right? And we absolutely can go back and revise or change or develop new boundaries based on how that experience goes.
And we have to be careful as guys in recovery. If our partner decides something needs to come off of the table sexually for safety or trauma or whatever it is, that we need to be very careful not to punish our partners. I used to go moody. I used to act like a little boy who had just been denied his lollipop. And I would really punish my partner when it would feel authentic for her to ask for some things to come off the table or be changed.
Yeah.
I put her through it as a result. Right.
Yeah. Yep. We need to be able to be flexible in this. If it's not flexible, that is an immediate red flag.
Yes.
There's if you can't say no, you probably shouldn't be saying yes. That's a great rule for addicts to live by.
Totally agree. I agree. Right.
Okay. It's okay to try something and then stop. Kind of ties in along with that, right? It's okay. Again, every healthy coupleship, and it's hard for us in this betrayal addiction dynamic to understand this. Every coupleship can, and we would argue, is supposed to figure out their sexual rhythm. It's one of the amazing parts of a relationship, right? Is developing out that uniqueness, just like in any other area of intimacy. But again, there will be some things that you will try and will really resonate pre-recovery versus post-recovery, and they resonate on both ends. There may likewise be things that really resonated pre-recovery, and at least for the time being, most definitely do not resonate post-recovery.
And we could say pre and post discovery day.
Sure. Or any pre and post anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So keep that in mind.
And the final part of this that we'll close with is this is a journey. It's a journey of exploration and growth. It is not an exact science.
Intimacy is not something you assemble like Legos.
No.
Okay? It's an art form. It really is. And all of these rules set a good stage for it, but there is an element of the two of you kind of sitting on the ground together like two cute little kids and kind of building with your Legos. Okay, let's try this and see how it goes.
Yeah.
And so you have to keep that in mind. But again, those rigid attitudes, especially for us addicts, can really accompany that. And we have to be watchful and look out for that, because that can be a real symbol that lingering dependency is still present.
Yeah. It's not a place for entitlement. It's not a place for exploitation. It's not a place that's one-sided or one person servicing the other person. It's a place of collaboration. It's a place of safety and a place of beauty and joy and connection. It can be so many marvelous things. But as we started this podcast, there's so much garbage that we've accumulated over a lifetime in this area that we now need to navigate through.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, we love your patronage. We love that you love the podcast. We always get a lot of really positive feedback, and we appreciate you all being here. You could be anywhere, but you're here. If you love the podcast, as always, we'll just remind you one more time, you'll love Dare to Connect. Please come grab a 2-week free trial of that at daretoconnectnow.com. We'd love to have you come and join us and see if it's a right fit for you and your partner. It's rare when we find someone who it's not, but we at least want you to try it. So daretoconnectnow.com, you can grab that, or to send us questions that you would like to have answered on a future episode of the PBSC podcast. You can always submit those to Mark and I if you go to that same website, daretoconnectnow.com. There's a PBSC squared banner up at the top, our PBSC podcast logo, and it takes you to a contact form where you can send those in to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, once again, thanks for being with us. Thanks for navigating through some really hard stuff. We're impressed by all of you. We're amazed that you're trying, that you're just seeking to move forward and to have better lives individually and together. We just appreciate every one of you. And we will look to see you on our next episode.
Absolutely. Have a great day, guys.
Everything expressed on the PBSC podcast are the opinions of the hosts and the participants, and is for informational and educational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered mental health therapy or as a substitute thereof. It is strongly recommended that you seek out the clinical guidance of an individual qualified mental health professional. If you're experiencing thoughts of suicide, self-harm, or a desire to harm others, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.